When you hit the pillow, how long does it take you to fall off to sleep? Imagine 20 seconds, 10 seconds. Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Remember when we were children, how quickly sleep would come and the quality of the sleep. 8, 10 hours, deep sleep. In the scriptures, they refer to deep sleep as the bliss sheath because it's a time when there are no agitations, no thoughts, just rest. In this session, we're going to talk about how can we improve the quality of our sleep. And now I'm not going to mention some of the more common ones that we're aware of, such as controlling our caffeine intake, not doing too intensive exercise just before we sleep, watching our screen activity, but more what's going on in our mind. If we take care of all these other aspects, the one aspect that could still keep us awake at night is our mental activity. Our mind keeps racing. It doesn't want to shut down, shut off. And we're going to cover a few ways on how we can quieten this mind, fall off to sleep quicker, get better quality sleep. The first is to understand what are these thoughts that are keeping us awake. And there are two types of thoughts. The mind has a tendency to worry about what's happened in the past. It relives through the day or maybe even earlier what's happened, an argument, a conversation with someone, and it has a post-mortem, it revisits word by word, line by line, perhaps the hurtful ones more so, but it could also be positive things. And it also has anxiety for the future. What's going to happen? Will I succeed or not? This is what the mind is preoccupied with when you should be sleeping. It is racing around these two ideas. How do we bring the mind to the center, in the present, quieten it, fall off to sleep? Every human being has a mind, but also an intellect to manage the mind. If we have the intellect strong enough to manage the mind, we can quieten the mind's worries and anxieties. So let's tackle the first one. Worries of the past. The past is past. The time to think about it is not when you're about to sleep. And I'm not saying we should dismiss it or ignore it, but let's bring it up with the intellect at a time we decide. So the time to do a post-mortem or go through the past, resolve our history, set a time for it. There are learnings there. Take the learnings, close the past. File closed, archived. But the mind might still play up. It brings it up over and over again. At least your intellect can say, look mind, we've dealt with this. Hush, quiet, resolved. What about the future? The future is not in our control. We can do our best effort, but we don't know all the other factors at play. We put in our best, we plan, we execute the action, and then leave the results to fate, to whatever our efforts, whatever is the result of all our actions. If we can go to sleep with a clean slate, no anxiety for the future. Why? Because you've set aside a time for it. Now the mind gets anxious. Look, you've forgotten about this factor. And what about this for tomorrow? You haven't thought about that. Give your mind the assurance, we have some planning time tomorrow morning. We had a planning session earlier today. There's nothing to worry about, but just follow the plan. If past is taken care of, future is taken care of, you're in the present, it's easier to fall off to sleep. But here's the question. Why do we worry or get anxious in the first place? We get worried or anxious because we have a desire in that particular area. If there is no desire, why would you worry? Think about it. Is there any worry or anxiety about something that you don't desire? Not possible. So let's locate that desire. And what we want to do is quieten the idea, quieten the desire, manage the desire so it's not loud enough to keep us awake. How do we do this? The first is to develop a stronger intellect. We're going to talk about it towards the end, how we can develop this intellect. But secondly, there are 3 spiritual practices that help reduce our desires, reduce their strength, and give us better peace of mind, less worry, less anxiety. The first discipline is called Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is when you dedicate your actions to something bigger than yourself, a higher ideal. And by working for a higher ideal, what happens is your attention goes to that something bigger. The attention to the lower, the desire for the lower, slowly starts dropping. The second aspect is called Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is when we send our feelings higher. And it has the same modus operandum as the first. You send your feelings higher. And because your feelings are on something higher, playing for the team instead of yourself, playing for the country's honor instead of your personal gain, those desires for personal gain get quieter and quieter. And the last one is through knowledge, Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is when you use your thinking, your intellect, and you dedicate your thinking to something higher through reading, through study. And because you're preoccupied there, your preoccupation with the lower, other desires, start reducing, slowly wane. These are 3 ways: service, love for something bigger, greater, study. If you study about something bigger, higher, then you find the desires getting softer, more manageable. Ultimately, it all boils down to developing the intellect. The way to develop the intellect is question everything. Not to challenge, but to find out what is the meaning behind things. And when we start questioning and finding out the meaning behind the choices that we make, the food that we eat, why we do what we do, why we practice what we practice, the intellect gets stronger. When the intellect is stronger, it's able to quieten the mind. The mind is like a child, the intellect is like the adult. The child is not to be suppressed. The child is not supposed to be shut down, but managed by an understanding adult, guiding the child to peace, quiet, and in this context, sleep. And the other way to develop the intellect, start a regular study, a small dose every day of a subject that deals with your personality, Vedanta. Learn a little bit about your mind, your intellect, every day. So your intellect can become stronger, so you can design the life that you want. If you want better quality sleep, understand the true cause. It's our racing mind. Worries of the past, anxieties for the future. They come from desire. Develop your intellect to manage the desire. Practice the 3 disciplines of service, love, knowledge. You will find those desires softer. Not no desire, managed desire, quieted desire, so it doesn't disturb your nights, doesn't disturb your rest, doesn't disturb your sleep. Sleep in 20 seconds, maybe even less.